Alright, so if you're into video games at all and you pay attention to developers and how their games have been doing, you know that EA has had a pretty rough couple of years. Especially if you include the last few months. Their contract with FIFA, that was their money printer, is ending. And FIFA, the soccer organization, has said they don't want to work with EA. Their contract of exclusive games with Disney is about to run out. Their last few releases haven't done that great. Battlefield 2042 fell off a cliff harder than, I don't know, someone that fell off a cliff and died in history. Whoever was before the Wright brothers that failed at designing the plane. Let's go with that guy. And because they're losing the license to the Star Wars games, the entire studio's just not in a very good position. And I guess the way that they think they're gonna get out of that is by convincing someone to give a bunch of money to the company to buy them. EA reportedly looking for merger after Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. I think this is a good situation for EA to be in if they are trying to convince someone to buy them, just because a lot of major companies have apparently been saying they want to get into gaming. Netflix has said they want to get into it. Basically, every company has a small gaming division. And I think if you're a huge powerhouse of a company, buying EA is a great way to get a developer studio that has a ton of experience and a few great titles that you could use as a base for what you're going to do. I mean, obviously, the last Battlefield was absolutely garbage. There's really nothing I can say to defend that hunk of crap. That being said, the franchise itself does have value. If they managed to come out with a really great Battlefield, I think people would play it. If they came out with something similar to Battlefield 4 in terms of quality, but with a modern engine, people would play the crap out of that game. The one thing that would be really off-putting to me if I was someone attempting to buy EA, though, and I'm not in charge of a company that has that type of cash, is why do they always lose their exclusivity deals? That's what's a little bit frustrating and scary to me. Something's clearly up with their business department if every time they get a huge contract, when the contract runs up, they're like, eh. I mean, FIFA is a video game that literally prints money. It literally prints money. The fact that they're willing to walk away from the contract with EA when it's up and not re-sign it should tell everyone that they can't be that great to work with. Because why would FIFA give up the money printer to go work with other studios when what they're doing with EA currently works in terms of making money? Yeah, people make fun of it for being the same game every year, but people were buying the same game every year. I think Disney is obviously very frustrated with EA because the Star Wars game should have been a slam dunk. That should have just been the easiest game of all time to make successful, and somehow EA couldn't do it. I'm not saying every game that EA released for Star Wars was horrible, but compared to what they should have been able to do, come on. Imagine if they give Activision the rights for COD and we get or rights for Star Wars, sorry, and we get a Star Wars COD? I mean, come on, that would have been sick. Why didn't we get something that cool? EA is in the midst of some massive changes at the moment. Not only is their exclusivity deal with FIFA coming to an end this year, but their exclusivity deal with Disney expires in 2023 and isn't being renewed. However, according to Dylan Byers of Puck, the company has also been shopping around for a merger. I think one of the companies that it would make the most sense to acquire EA is any of the companies that have a streaming service, just because I think if you ever wanted to do game streaming, which a lot of people have said they do, Netflix is getting into it. Buying EA comes with a huge backlog. You can say, oh, if you buy our Game Pass, you get XXX amount of games. I think a lot of the value in EA isn't necessarily in what they've got popping in the future, but in the stuff that they've already done, which is not the greatest thing to hear. But I mean, let's be honest, what's more likely? EA coming out of nowhere, managing to reverse all the stupid decisions that they've been making for the last 10 years? Or them continuing to be the company that can't get it together and you only being able to get value off of all the good games they already made? Maybe with new ownership they could really turn it around, but EA is one of those gaming companies that, in my opinion, has been on the slide to irrelevancy for quite a while. I don't know what happens with game companies, but it seems like once they hit a certain level of success, they just stop listening to what the people who buy the games want. and they only exclusively look at profit. And for a while, I think that works, but eventually you run the franchises that were printing you money into the ground. Like Battlefield for a while was the biggest competitor with COD. COD used to be a lot bigger, so Battlefield was pretty large. And Battlefield was one of the games that I felt like improved the most from sequel to sequel. And then out of nowhere, man, they just managed to run it into the ground because they started worrying purely about the profits of it. In recent years, as media companies have taken greater interest in the rapidly growing gaming industry, Wilson and Electronic Arts have held talks with a number of different potential suitors. According to his sources, the list of potential candidates EA spoke to included Amazon, Apple, Comcast, Disney, and NBC Universal, the latter of which gained the most traction but fell through during negotiations. Several sources with these talks say EA has been persistent in pursuing a sale and has only grown more emboldened in the wake of the Microsoft Activision deal. He added, keeping their identities anonymous. I mean, I think Microsoft bought Blizzard Activision mainly because the company's going through it. They keep getting sued like 9 times a week, and obviously if they can buy it right now, the value is way, way down from where it could be if they could have just ran the company in a good way and not been scumbags. I don't think it necessarily signifies a giant gold rush. I know Sony went out and bought a game developer as well. I think that was just to kind of get some publicity about remaining competitive. Like I said, it makes sense that these are some of the companies they were talking to. Apple, obviously, as Apple TV, they might be interested in getting into it. Disney, they've worked with them, which is why it's even extra funny that Disney said no. They were like, no, we're really familiar with how you guys make games. No, thank you. We're not trying to partner up. NBC also makes sense. I'm not surprised that there were negotiations there. I just think overall, when you start to look at EA and where they were 5 years ago compared to now, I'm sure the price they were asking for did not make sense. They've really ran a lot of their popular franchises into the ground, and when you start looking at the fact that they're losing all their exclusivity deals with huge franchises, it doesn't necessarily make you more confident about buying them. You know, Disney, as much as most of their games aren't incredible, they do make a lot of money. Every time a Pixar movie comes out and that video game releases, I'm sure it makes a couple million. Every time a Star Wars game releases, all that stuff, the Marvel games, I'm not necessarily sure if that's all the same contract, but either way, if you look at all of that, take that away, you take away FIFA, and if FIFA ends up leaving EA and making a better game with a different company that is even more popular, then you start to really get nervous, because the last thing you want is all of the other sports franchises to leave EA. Yeah. So I'm not surprised no one's really pulled the trigger on a deal with the company, just because the situation they're in is really like 2 inches away from the cliff, which is not when you want to buy a company. At that point, just wait till they end up falling off of it and then buy them for pennies on the dollar as they continue to run themselves into the ground. Bayers also claimed that EA approached Disney as recently as March to chase a more meaningful relationship than licensing deals. However, he couldn't confirm what it entailed, only that Disney decided against it. If I was a company looking to acquire them, this also would make me very skeptical. They've worked a lot with Disney. They've made a lot of games with their franchises. The fact that they were not interested in pursuing more of a relationship, I think, is really telling. You would think that if this relationship had been going great, if they were happy with the games EA have made, this is kind of a no-brainer. Disney gets a huge gaming company. They get to make a bigger push into gaming, and EA now has a parent company with a crap ton of money. Disney's one of those companies that just kind of has an infinite amount of money, not literally, but basically. The fact that Disney, after as long as this relationship has been, has no interest whatsoever in acquiring them should be embarrassing to EA. And I think probably is a signal to every one of the other potential suitors about how that relationship's actually going to end up being. I think gaming has a ton of future potential in terms of like industry and making a bunch of money, but I think a lot of the companies that are currently at the top of it have shifted a little too heavily to profit only. It's kind of like the movie industry. Yes, everyone wants to make a movie that grosses $1 billion, but at some point the movie also has to be good to get people to keep watching them. No one wants to see, like, I don't know, Harry Potter 47, you just can't keep doing it forever if you make no changes. If they just constantly remade the first Harry Potter movie, but with the actors getting older and older, it wouldn't have done that well. And that's what it feels like a lot of these game companies have done in terms of just like making the same game every year with no changes, not listening to anyone's complaints. And it's starting to cost them their exclusivity deals because sales are starting to be affected. John Reisberg, a spokesperson from EA, described the claims as nothing but rumors and speculation and insisted the company's in a position of strength and growth and has a very bright future ahead. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean a merger won't happen at some point in the future. It still fits the description he provided, but it does mean a deal hasn't been locked in yet. Listen, man, I don't think EA is gonna go bankrupt tomorrow. They're a very big company. I'm sure they're still making plenty of money, but I don't think this guy could say that they're like in a position of strength. FIFA cutting their contract and Disney cutting their contract doesn't imply that everything's going hunky-dory and there's nothing to be worried about. It kind of makes me think things might not be going that incredible because if it was going that great, then they would have no reason to cut the contract. Like, if the games were doing great, they were printing money off of them, I don't think they would walk away from it. Disney doesn't seem like the type of company that doesn't like to make money. That's kind of what they're all about. I get it, you're a spokesperson, you gotta do what you gotta do. This guy probably needs a pay raise because he's spinning this as positive as he possibly can, but it is just funny hearing them be like, no, everything's fine. Meanwhile, some of their biggest games are in a horrible state of disrepair. Overall, it'll just be interesting to see what happens. Do you guys think anyone would buy EA? Should they buy EA? Am I wrong? Am I right? Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there commenting, you might as well press the like button. And if you're new, be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. I would greatly appreciate it. Helps the channel do better, makes me know that you guys like the videos. Thank you all so much for the support. Like I said, I'm back at it. There'll be another upload later today. I'm doing the double upload grind. Don't know how long it'll last, but I'm gonna try my best to keep it going for as long as humanly possible. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Would you buy EA? All that good stuff. And on that note, don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and hopefully I'll see you guys all next time with another video. I'm out. Peace.